outdoor living, this sort of, I guess, open fire grilling, that's sort of what I grew up with. It's a big part of my DNA. When you cook on a grill, I mean, it completely brings obviously a completely different dimension of flavour. It's not just the actual product you're cooking, but it's like the coals and the wood you're using as well. And I also think live fire cooking brings people together. It brings everybody to the table. So we're doing a dish that we've done from the beginning. We started off in Dalston as a street food trader in 2013. We started with two dishes, beef short rib and pork belly rib. Today we're doing a beef short rib. So it's a classic dry rub and a barbecue glaze with pickled red chilli. A link to the recipes on the video description. Right, so in any sort of rub, what you're combining is sort of four things. So you've got sweet, salt, heat, and aromatics. So the first thing we do is start toasting off the aromatics. So we've got garlic granules here. It's quite a loose recipe in the sense that you can kind of play with how much you think you need. For the most part, the recipe is 1 teaspoon, but there's some we'll probably go a bit heavy-handed with. Fennel seed, which is probably less common in the States to be used. A bit more predominant in, I guess, Italian sort of food, but I think it adds a really nice flavour. Cumin seeds, again, super pungent, so you probably want to go on the lighter side of that. Again, same with peppercorns, be a bit gentle with it, and then chilli flakes. So the idea is that we now toast these off just to the point where they're brown. We'll just leave that back here for a couple of minutes. Right, so you just toast these off sort of just to the point where they get aromatic, and you want to combine that in the pestle and mortar. So that's all the aromatics. Then we've got the salt, the sweet. We've got two types of sugar. This is a demerara. So you want to put in a couple of these, I reckon probably 2.5, 2 and change. Depends how big a teaspoon is. And then just going to mix away, grind that all together. When you're kind of mixing it, you want all the aromatics to kind of come out. So when the friction again against the actual pestle and mortar in a blender, will loosen all the aromatics. Right, so once that's all been ground, you want to add a bit of mustard powder, paprika, and then caster sugar, and then salt, say 2 teaspoons worth. So this will work really well any protein, so beef, pork, chicken especially. It's got quite a bit of kick to it, so you don't need it too much of it. Right, so what we're doing now is the rub is made and then the product. So short rib, as I said, it's obviously got quite a bit of intramuscular fat that you kind of see running through it. And all we're trying to do is just season these quite liberally. This recipe, it can easily replicate in the oven. It's not going to have the same smokiness to it, but you're going to have obviously a bit of a roasted flavour. So you probably go in the oven a bit hotter, around 160 degrees, and it'll probably take about 2-3 hours. So these are good to go now. So these are now going to go in the smoker, around 120 degrees. We're using oak, and we're going to smoke these for around 4 or 5 hours. There's two types of barbecue, and I think it gets a bit confused. How barbecue kind of started in the States is that it takes like non-prime cuts. So when I say non-prime, your filet, your sirloin, your ribeyes, they're what are considered prime. So they're cooked over short, fast, intense heat. What we do is the opposite. It's very, very low temperatures, and you're cooking for 2 reasons. You're cooking to, obviously for flavour, but also texture. So because the product cooks for so long, what happens is you go through a period where you break down the collagens in the meat. So it goes from something incredibly, I guess, quite tough by its nature to breaking it down. So where it becomes, I guess, unctuous, I guess is the right word. So that's sort of what we try to achieve here. Right, so these have been in the smoker for around 4 or 5 hours now. So what's happening obviously with the reaction of the smoke is created a bark on the outside, and they're probably 80% of the way cooked. So what you want to do is we want to wrap them in foil. You can use paper as well, butcher paper, parchment paper works equally as well. And this will just continue to cook. Because if you cook it any longer, as it is right now, what will happen is that it's almost like toast. The darker the toast goes on the outside, the less bread you have. And it sounds a bit cheesy, but what that means is like the meat inside, you kind of retain it. You don't want to get any more bark on the actual product itself. So these will now go in the smoker for about another hour or so. Right, so we're going to do a classic barbecue sauce now. It's tomato based, and we're going to start with just sort of sweating down some onions first and foremost. Right, so we take the onions down just to the point where they're sort of getting translucent, starting to caramelize, and then we just microplane some garlic in. Microplane obviously gets it incredibly fine, which is what you want. You can use a grater, microplane, you can also chop quite finely, whatever's convenient really. We're going to put in chili flakes, cumin again, and then black pepper as well. And we'll cook that out for a bit. Barbie sauce is incredibly simple. It's pretty much your aromatics, ketchup base, vinegar, and sugar. So you're counteracting the acidity with the sweet. So once you have those caramelized, that's all the sweetness and the aromatics in there. And then the vinegar that gives it the sharpness. And you reduce that right down to syrup. So the vinegar's been reduced right down. That's obviously going to be quite tart now. And then we're going to start with apple juice, then do the exact same process again. Reduce that right down to syrup. Right, so that's now got the right level of reduction, but also caramelization. So as that reduces, it'll still continue to caramelize the actual onions itself. And then now we're just gonna put in a bit of dark brown sugar, and then just a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. You know how like a caramel of sorts. So see obviously onion reduction with the garlic, vinegar, give it some acidity, sugar, and all your spices. So last step is we put in the sort of tomato sauce. And what you're trying to do is combine the two ingredients, if that makes any sense. So right, we're on to now to the pickled red chili, which kind of cuts all the richness. While we're doing that, we've got the Barbie sauce. There's a gentle simmer ticking over. So this is super, super simple. We've just got bog standard red chilies there. Different times of year, the heat can be completely different, and it depends where you kind of get them from. You want to go quite thin with these if you can. And you can play with different things. I mean, Scotch want to work really well. They're incredibly hot though, but they have a really nice fruitiness to them. They'll work quite well for this dish as well. More than the actual chili, it's actually the vinegar. So the vinegar cuts all the richness of the fat. Most of what we do in barbecue is obviously quite fat laden. So where you can kind of cut it with acidity, with sort of, in the States they use raw onion, which I think is pretty aggressive, but it gives you an idea what's out there. So into this we're going to put water, vinegar, just enough to cover them. And then again, it's how sweet, how tart you want them. For this, we're just going to put in a spoon of sugar. And don't be fooled with this, vinegar really does take a bit of sugar. So in this case, I probably put even a touch more. We'll bring that to the boil now. So we just want to bring the chilies to the point of the boil, and then you're going to cover them with the lid, and the residual temperature will just soften them gently. So these are just coming to the smoker, obviously been wrapped. Now we want to just check to see their doneness, I guess. The main thing actually is feeling it along the bone. I can tell if we have enough pressure, my hand will go straight through it. And that's kind of what you want, but it still has enough rigidity. But the main thing is that how it kind of comes off the bone. That's the part that takes the longest to cook. You can kind of see that I can slide that off, but yeah, it has texture. The other way you can do it is, of course, how it feels, and then the temperature inside of it as well. But you're looking for obviously the temperature, but also the feel of it as well. Right, the final step now is that we're now going to start to caramelize these on the grill. So to do that, we're just going to put them over here, and obviously the product has a lot of fat into it. The barbecue sauce has a lot of sugars, and what you're trying to do is combine the two. So you want to be quite liberally brush your barbecue sauce on, and then it's a process we call glazing, where you repeat this process numerous times, and then with the actual heat, the sugars and the actual fat combine, and they caramelize on the product. I got to be quite careful it doesn't stick, as I have a tendency to do, especially with the sugars. Don't fiddle with it too much. The less you fiddle with it, the less chance it has of sticking. Yeah, anybody doing this at home, you can definitely do it in the oven like this. If you are going to put the barbecue sauce, I'd put it in the oven on a grill heat. So you just the sauce, you can caramelize the sauce on top, but it will, because the amount of sugars in it, it will caramelize quite naturally on the product. So these are nicely caramelized now. These are ready to serve. Right, so plating up is super simple. So short rib on the plate, a little bit of the chilies on the side. Drop that. Beef short rib, house barbecue, pickled red chili. It's perfect sort of barbecue as a sharing thing. So always best served family style. Everybody dig it.